The measuring stick just changed around here, buddy. You're looking at it.
You are now listening to the Outsiders Sports Show right here on The Hog, the most comprehensive and hard-hitting sports hour on radio today. And now, coming at you with their unabashed sports magnetism, here are your hosts, Clint, Switzer, and Noah Gronniger.
And welcome everyone to the Outsiders Sports Show. Clint Switzer with Noah Gronniger joining you here on The Hog. Noah, from college football to the National Football League, your money stays and plays with the Outsiders. Let's do this.
Let's do it. I mean, my money definitely got a little healthier as I bet on the Denver Broncos to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and I was one of the few right ones in Chiefs fan land.
Yeah, and we're going to definitely get into that later on in the show with former Bronco Byron Chamberlain, who's going to join us talking Chiefs and Broncos and kind of what happened in that game. And we're going to be breaking down this performance by the Kansas City Chiefs as the show goes on. Certainly going to be looking at what this Chiefs team can be as the rest of the season rolls on and what went wrong in the game. Because really, to be honest, the game happened exactly as we thought it would. No, I mean, this game, it was 27-17. I had it 31-10. I think for Kansas City to have won this game, they were going to have to force turnovers. They were going to have to get to Peyton Manning. They just couldn't do it.
No, definitely not. This is 3 weeks in a row now that Houston and Hawley haven't been able to get a pass rush. And we haven't really seen much of Dontari Poe since early on in the season. It looked like he was going to explode onto the map, and he's exploded and just disappeared now.
Yeah, we're going to talk about how much of this is offenses catching on to this Kansas City defense and the pass rush, knowing that they have to get rid of the ball quickly to negate that pass rush. And we're going to be talking about that with Byron Chamberlain and talking more Chiefs later on in the show. We're going to start things off with some college football. Missouri Tigers going on the road tonight to take on the Ole Miss Rebels. Ole Miss is back in the rankings. They've won 4 straight, albeit against very subpar competition. Missouri's going to get James Franklin back. They're 8th ranked in the BCS. This is going to be a good game, maybe one of the more entertaining ones of the weekend. Yeah,
definitely. You got Bo Wallace for Ole Miss, a great quarterback. James Franklin coming back off the injury versus a real big competition in Ole Miss. It's just going to be a great game to watch, and it's going to be interesting to see if James Franklin is rusty or not. If he is a little bit rusty, does Gary Pinkel pull him or not? We'll ask Martin Rucker, former Missouri Tiger tight end. We'll get him on the show as our guest coming up after the break.
Absolutely. Martin Rucker is going to be joining us after our first break here. The former Tiger great. He's played in the NFL. He's currently a free agent and hoping that Martin catches on with the team. T-Ruck, one of the greatest Tigers that ever played. I mean, at tight end, that 07 team with him, Chase Kaufman, Denario Alexander. I mean, just an unbelievable team, an unbelievably talented team, and we're going to talk to him about that team and this current team. And I'll tell you what, you talked about James Franklin coming off this injury. Gary Pinkel wanted to get him in to the Kentucky game 2 weeks ago to get some reps, to shake off some of that rust. Maybe he was able to do that, maybe not. We're going to ask Martin Rucker later on, how short is this leash going to be for James Franklin? If this offense stalls out, is it going to be go time, get Matty Mock in there? Because he did a really capable job keeping up and running this Tigers offense in James Franklin's absence.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really relied on the defense and how many points they allow. If it's 0-0 and they're letting James Franklin kind of get into the game and the defense can hold Ole Miss off the board, then I think they'll keep James Franklin out there and let him get comfortable. But if Ole Miss goes out and puts 14 points up and James Franklin's still struggling, they might switch to Matty Mock. Matty Mock's done well in James Franklin's absence due to the injury.
Well, I'll tell you what, as of last week, as we saw the Auburn-Georgia miracle take place, Auburn, the miracle on the plains, getting the tipped pass, completed Hail Mary with only 26 seconds to go. That pretty much signified that Missouri's going to have to win these next 2 games to win the SEC East, which would be a huge thing for this program, huge thing for Missouri. They've got to beat Ole Miss. They've got to beat Texas A&M to do it. And you talked about Missouri's defense. They have not allowed more than 28 points in a game yet this season, and that's against teams like Georgia. They've played some very good offenses, even early in the season. Indiana, Toledo. Missouri has been in there, and the defense, the pass rush, very similar to the Kansas City Chiefs. Missouri's pass rush leads the nation in sacks. Michael Sam, Marcus Golden, Coney Ely. These guys have been after the quarterback all season, and if Missouri can do that against Ole Miss, I think they're really going to force their hand early. Hugh Freeze has a lot of young, capable talent there at Ole Miss. It is young. They've had some moments this year where they just don't look that good. They got blanked by Alabama. They have not played well in some games. They did play well, nearly knocked off Johnny Manziel and the Texas A&M Aggies. They did get a big win recently over LSU. So this team's very capable of knocking off, especially at home. So Missouri's going to have to go on the road where they have been successful all year, haven't lost yet. Missouri knows they have this A&M game in front of them, Noah. Is this going to be a distraction at all for Missouri, knowing you're going to have to beat both of these teams to win the SEC East?
I don't think so. I think they're definitely focused on taking one game at a time. This Ole Miss team is not a team that you can look past and get a W like you could versus Kentucky. I think it all lies on James Franklin. Is he rusty? How does he come out against top-level competition in the SEC and Ole Miss? And if he struggles, I think Ole Miss could take this game, depending on if Gary Pinkel has a short leash on him and puts Matty Mock in or what happens. I think it's going to rely on the defense and how James Franklin comes back off the injury, if he's rusty or not.
Well, I'll tell you this about Missouri. All year, there's been reasons why Missouri can't win certain games. Well, they're going to Georgia. This is where the fun ends here. They went to Vanderbilt earlier in the year, a game I went to, a very capable Vanderbilt team. People said, well, it's been fun, but this Vanderbilt team's improved. Missouri has just all year brought their A game, with the exception of really the fourth quarter against South Carolina, which cost him that game. Missouri has really brought it. They have won every game by at least 15 points. Aside from that South Carolina game, Missouri has been really impressive in these games, and this could be a time. This could be a game where Missouri just goes in, does what it does, wins by a couple touchdowns, and we're going to ask Martin Rucker his opinion on this game. But huge game for Missouri, a lot going on. The SEC, Missouri's opponent next week will be Texas A&M, who takes on LSU. I don't know what to think about this LSU team. They're kind of just a team right now, but at home, in the Bayou, they're going to be rocking. It's going to be not quite a night game. It's going to turn nighttime as the game goes on, but you don't win in LSU during the nighttime, man.
I'm still going to take Johnny Manziel and the Texas A&M Aggies. I mean, I don't like this LSU team a lot. I think they're a watered-down version of themselves from years past when they were one of the strongest teams in the nation. But even a watered-down SEC team is still a really strong football team. I think LSU is a good football team, just not good enough against the Alabamas, the Auburns, and coming up tonight, Texas A&M.
Yeah, going to be very interesting to see how that shakes out. And we want to give a big shout-out. Before we go to our first break, before we bring Martin Rucker on, we have to give a shout-out to the Kansas Jayhawks, Noah, who won their first conference game in 3 years and in 27 tries. Let's get it up.
Yes.
Charlie Weiss turning that thing around over at Kansas. I know tons of Kansas football fans are listening right now. You all must be just beside yourselves. They tore the goalpost down. It was a huge deal.
They threw it in a lake or a pond outside the stadium. It's just unbelievable that they finally got this win versus West Virginia. A great football team, one of the best in the nation. Oh, wait, no, they're not.
Okay, so Noah, here's something in serious that we need to talk about, which is that when the Big 12 was falling apart and it lost Colorado, it lost Nebraska, and then a year later it lost A&M and Missouri, they brought in West Virginia and TCU, and they said, look, we've replaced A&M and Missouri. Who needs those losers? We got these great teams. Well, Not so fast.
You can say that when you have Geno Smith there, but then he leaves just 1 year removed from that.
They weren't good with Geno Smith. Last year, they were horrible.
Well, they started off the season well.
Did.
It was looking great, and then everything fell apart, and it's continued to fall apart, and it's going to continue and continue as Texas goes down a new path probably without Mac Brown. They're going to be rebuilding, getting a new system in there. So
TCU and West Virginia are disasters in that conference. They're disasters.
They are. So if they're disasters, what does that make Kansas? I don't know if there's a word in the English dictionary to describe what Kansas is, but that's what they are.
Oh, they got Andrew Wiggins. If only he could play football too, we may be singing a different story here, but I'll tell you what, we're going to be talking a lot about this Missouri and Ole Miss game with Martin Rucker coming up after the break, guys. We really hope you stick around and join us. We are locked and loaded here on a College Football Saturday. Going to be talking college football and the NFL with you. Don't go anywhere. Return here on The Hog, and we're going to be talking with former Missouri tight end Martin Rucker. And welcome back to the Outsider Sports Show right here on KKES-FM The Hog, being joined currently by former Missouri Tiger great Martin Rucker. T-Rock, welcome to the show. How you doing, my man?
Hey, thanks a lot for having me on, man. I'm doing really well. Just enjoying some of this fall weather. How about yourself?
Absolutely. And we got two big games coming up here for the Missouri Tigers. Starting, of course, Saturday night, Missouri will travel to Ole Miss to take on the Rebels. How do you see these last two games playing out? I mean, this team's really on a roll, aren't they, man?
They are playing great football. And they're playing together, which is huge. They're playing together and they're playing for one another. And so whenever you have those two things coming together, it's usually a recipe for success. I know I see these last two games going in our favor. I think they're going to be tough football games that this team's going to have to focus and play for 60 minutes, but I definitely think that they can get the job done.
course, and tell me how much does this team remind you, of your 2007 team that went 11-1, won the Big 12 North, and really just seemed to be a team of destiny all year. Does this team remind you of that team at all?
They do. And as I talk to people around the program more and more, they all see it too. You know, they talk about how guys are selfless, how guys don't care who gets the credit for the wins. Guys aren't complaining about getting the ball. All they want to do is win. You guys have been working together, these seniors, for 4 years, some of them 4.5, and they want to play winning football. They had a disappointing season last year, and people were down on them and talking about how they were underachieving and things like that. And stuff happens like that over your career. You kind of form a bond with those guys that you're fighting with. These guys are great athletes that have been fighting together for a long time, and this is kind of the way that they can put the stamp on their legacy at Mizzou, and I think they're going to do it.
Well, getting into this Ole Miss game, I wanted to get your thoughts on James Franklin coming back from the injury, his first big game against a good opponent in Ole Miss. And do you think he might get a long leash or a short leash, and they might put Matty Mock in if he struggles?
Gary said Matty will play, so I think that how Franklin does just determines how much Matty will play. I think that Matty has definitely shown himself capable of handling himself in this game if need be, but James Franklin was playing great football whenever he was injured. They went down to Georgia, got that big win, and they were undefeated with him at the helm, so it was unfortunate of his injury, but I'm definitely confident in his ability to lead this team to a victory on Saturday. But if not, I'm confident that Matty can come in and play good football as well.
We're talking about parallels between this year and 2007. Of course, you guys went and played Ole Miss that year yourselves in a non-conference game on the road. Just talk about the atmosphere down there and what Missouri fans and what this team can expect going down there to play the Rebels in Oxford.
It was really cool to go down there and play in a new stadium. We're locked down pretty tight, so we don't really get to take part in all the fanfare and everything that the Grove has to offer, and just kind of the Southern traditions and things that Ole Miss is famous for. But it's a nice stadium. They're good fans, passionate about football, and so it'll be a very highly energetic football game with fans that have knowledge of the game for sure.
I want to ask you about the tight end position in this offense as it's evolved since Josh Henson has taken over. Even last year under Dave Yost, we saw maybe Missouri going away from using that tight end. Of course, Eric Waters, Sean Culkin, two very capable tight ends, haven't really been used in the offense much. I know in 2009, Denario Alexander kind of slid into that slot wide receiver position that was kind of your position when you were at Missouri. Just talk about how the tight end position's evolved and maybe why it hasn't been used quite as much. Are these guys just not good as Martin Rucker and Chase Kaufman? I mean, what's going on here?
These guys are great athletes, big, strong kids, and they both have a really good feel for the game. The coaches are really excited about both of them. They like Eric Waters. He's been there for 4 years, 5 years, and they're really excited about Sean Culkin. So I know they're more than capable athletes. It's just kind of with this receiving class that we have. This was like the top-rated receiving class to all go to the same school of their year. So they just got so many weapons that it's tough to get everybody involved. And with the transition into the SEC and the new offensive coordinator, his offensive style is just a little bit different. It attaches the tight end more, uses them in a blocking role more, and he's used more to give our quarterback time to throw the ball downfield with these big lines in the SEC. And so that's huge. That's probably the biggest difference between playing in the SEC and playing in the Big 12 is how good and athletic the defensive linemen are and the offensive linemen are. So to help Missouri gain that edge, you leave the tight end in a little bit more than you let him go out, flex him out. In pass routes, the tight end has been utilized though this year, just kind of sparingly, and it's kind of like a tool that we have where teams forget about it because we don't use it that often, and when we need it, we can pull it out, and it's usually really successful still. I think that it kind of works in our favor that we don't really have to use them, but we're still having success, and when we need them, they're there.
Of course, you talked earlier about this team in 2012 and how it just was not a good start into the SEC for this team for whatever reason, injuries, different problems. What were some of your thoughts when you started hearing things like, well, Coach Pinkel's on the hot seat, this isn't going to work? As a former player, what kind of thoughts and what did you tell people when they would bring that up to you?
Told people to just hang in there with them, and Coach Pinkel has been through it before when I was there. I think he was on the hot seat a couple different times. One time he was very close to getting fired, but they had a vision, and they just needed the right players and right amount of time to get everything going in the direction that they wanted to. And last year, with the injuries, with the transition into a new conference, you can't get into this new conference and start losing right away, because then you'll turn into one of those teams that's like a Kansas of the Big 12, or like a Mississippi State, where you have one good year, every few years, but you're never really a contender. You don't get the recruits that you need to win in this conference. And so the first couple of years with this transition, these are very, very vital years where we have to get on the gas pedal and get established in this thing in the correct way. Because if you don't, things can go downhill in a hurry.
I want to go back to 2007 for a minute, because certainly one of the greatest seasons in school history. And we had Pig Brown on the show a couple weeks ago, and just talking about some memories from that season. And my goodness, there were quite a few. And you were right at the focal point of that. Talk about what that offense was like playing, with the quarterback like Chase Daniel and all the talent you had around you. I mean, I could list names: Will Franklin, Denard Alexander, Jeremy Macklin, Tony Temple, Jimmy Jackson, all these guys. Talk about what it was like playing an offense like that, and how your teammates and you kind of fed off each other that year.
It was just so easy because you could rely on somebody to make a play. It was everything that you drew up, plays that you ran in practice all week. They worked just that way in the game, but it wasn't because everything was magic. It was because all those guys were working really hard. You name off a list of a whole bunch of names of guys that were very good football players, but they were even harder workers. And so that's what leads to success. And when you see those guys working that hard every day in the weight room, on the football field, running, lifting, sweating, and you kind of bond together, it's just about trust. And that was probably the best thing about that year, which is everybody trusted everybody. So whenever a play was called, we didn't have to question the call. We didn't have to worry about if this guy was going to catch the ball or anything like that. We just went out and did our job. And that's the easiest way to play football, is when you don't have to worry about anything but just doing your job. When you can be happy for the next man to succeed, and when you can succeed when it's your turn, it helps everybody out, and it just makes it fun, makes it enjoyable, and you want to show up to practice, you want to show up to the games every week.
You guys have had some huge wins that year. Of course, you beat Illinois and St. Louis, who went on to the Rose Bowl. Texas Tech, who was undefeated at the time you played them. Some really big wins. Nearly defeated Oklahoma on the road early in the season. But for you, does it always come back, when people ask you, does it come back to the Kansas game in 2007 where you guys became the number one team in the nation? Does that one stand out more than the rest?
It does. I asked for a better stage for that game. You couldn't ask for a better venue. Couldn't ask for a better night. I mean, everything was perfect. Game day was there. It was just the culmination of two teams that, at least one for sure, just kind of came out of nowhere. And no one in the nation thought that was going to be the game that would be decided who was number one in the country that week. So that game was really special to me. For it to be at Arrowhead, back in Kansas City, and I mean, it's awesome. It's the Border War. It was everything that the Border War is about and should be about.
It was unbelievable times there, and you being a part of that, of turning this program around to get to where it's at today. You're going to have guys off this team talking about winning at Georgia, and who knows, maybe winning an SEC championship against Alabama. Wins like that, just like memories that you will have. Now, as we head into this game against Ole Miss, before we let you go, we got to get your prediction on this game, maybe a score and how you think this game will go. Obviously, Ole Miss can put up some points. Bo Wallace is a very capable quarterback for them. They have a lot of young talent. Robert Kimdichie, the number one recruit on defense. How do you see this game shaking out, and what do you think the score is going to be?
I think Mizzou will win it by a touchdown or two. I'd say score will be 38-24. They definitely have some talented guys on defense. But I think our defense is going to step up to the challenge of their offense. And they'll get theirs, but I think we'll get a little bit more of ours. And I think we'll win it. It'll be a convincing win, but we'll have to earn it all the way to the last whistle.
Absolutely. We'll take that and take our chances against Johnny Manziel. Hopefully next week coming into Mizzou, a sold-out game. That's going to be absolutely monstrous should Missouri be fortunate enough to win this game on Saturday. Martin, I tell you what, cannot thank you enough for joining us today. Great to catch up with some old times and talk about these current Tigers. You're the man, buddy. I tell you what, it's we really missed you out there, and just glad you're able to join us today. And certainly stay in touch as we go on in the future, man. And before we let you go, we got to ask you, of course, what's going on in the NFL career. Of course, you were in Kansas City last year, had the injury. How are things going on the free agency front? What can we expect from your football future?
Things are going well for me right now. I'm all rehabbed. I wasn't quite ready to go at the beginning of this year's football season. So, it was a little tough to get picked up by a team then. So right now I'm just a free agent, still working out, staying in shape, kind of holding out hope for that dream. Maybe get a call this year, give it a shot early on next year, see what happens, and then it'll kind of be decision time around, I don't know, like May, April, or something like that. So just kind of staying in shape, and right now I've got a lot of free time on my hands. So I partnered with Rally House and Big Brothers Big Sisters for a toy and game drive this year for Columbia, St. Joseph, and Kansas City. And it's just a toy or a game for kids ages K through 12. And the drop-off points are the Rally House in Columbia on Broadway, the Rally House in Independence, the Kansas Sampler over by Oak Park, the Rally House North up by Berry Road in Kansas City, and then the Rally House at Eastfield Mall in St. Joseph. So those are all the drop-off points, and all the toys in the respective cities go to those Big Brothers Big Sisters. So hopefully a lot of people will come out and give these kids a Christmas to remember that they wouldn't otherwise have.
That is really great, and I'll tell you what, we will definitely be sure to hype that on our page and get some of those links set up so that we can get as many people involved as we can. That is great. We're up here in North Kansas City, and we've got the Rally House up here. Definitely going to get some fans to come out to that. That's a wonderful partnership and just a really great thing to do around this holiday season, man. So we really appreciate it. We'll catch up soon. You take it easy and enjoy this weekend of football, buddy.
Awesome, man. You guys do the same, and I really appreciate you having me on, man.
You bet. Have a good one.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Huge thanks to T-Ruck, Martin Rucker, for joining us. Great to catch up with him, talking some Mizzou Tigers football. Great to reminisce about his 07 team and his career a little bit. That guy was an absolute stud at that position when you're talking about him, Chase Kaufman, Chase Daniel, Tony Temple, Gennaro Alexander, Jeremy Macklin, Will Franklin. I cannot...
Just keep going, Clint. Just go on and on. But we wish the best for him coming off his rehab, trying to get back into the NFL. I think the Chiefs could use him. I mean, we've got McGrath and Fasano. There's nothing really impressive there. I'd like to see Martin Rucker come back to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, they talk a lot about, Missouri tight ends struggling in the NFL because they don't have to do a lot of blocking in that spread offense. It's, these guys are basically receivers, big, tall, physical receivers out there that are great at catching the ball. And this goes for Michael Egnew and Chase Kaufman, too. None of the three have really taken hold in the NFL. They've all been in the league, but haven't really taken hold. But love it. He's got Missouri 38-24, and honestly, that score sounds about right to me. In fact, I'm going to back Martin Rucker and take that exact same score, say 38-24 Missouri in that game.
I think it's going to be a little closer. I look at James Franklin coming out a little rusty, Ole Miss getting ahead a little bit, maybe 10, 14 points. But then I see Franklin getting comfortable and Mizzou storming back and winning by about 7 to 10 points.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's that. I think that sentiment is echoed by a lot of people. Missouri's a 3-point favorite in this game, so a lot of people have this as a close game, and it absolutely could be. The hope is that Missouri's focus coming into this, knowing what they have to do to win the SEC East, which is going to be huge for this team. I mean, Martin Rucker's 2017 won the Big 12 North for the first time for the University of Missouri. How big was that? That was unbelievably big. It turned the program into a whole new stratosphere, really, and so we're going to see how this game plays out. College football is coming up, but I'll tell you what, after the break now, we're going to be talking with former Broncos tight end, actually also another former Mizzou tight end,
yes,
Byron
exactly.
Chamberlain. We're going to be talking about what went wrong for the Kansas City Chiefs to his Denver Broncos coming up after the break. Stay tuned here on KKES-FM The Hog. All right, and welcome back to The Hog, KKES-FM, the Outsider Sports Show, being joined by former Bronco Byron Chamberlain. Byron, I know you're feeling pretty good about things here. Denver gets to 9-1. Tied with the Kansas City Chiefs, now first place in the division. How did you feel about that game? Did it go kind of the way you thought it would?
It really did. I think I knew it would be a hard-fought game. I know Kansas City with their defense coming in. A lot of people, are saying, well, Kansas City didn't play anybody. But the fact of the matter is that defense has been very disruptive, and you can't argue with the numbers as far as takeaways and points allowed. So I knew it'd be a tough game, but I thought Denver would have just enough offense to win it, and then they did.
And then that's kind of what happened. I mean, tell me if you saw anything different, but to me it looked like Denver's game plan was simple, and Peyton Manning said, I'm not getting hit tonight. I will unload the ball early. It's going to be quick passes. I will throw it at my receiver's feet if I have to, but I'm not getting hit, not going to turn it over, not going to lose this game. Denver knew they didn't have to score that much. Did you think that Denver, that was their, what they were looking to do? Peyton Manning wanted to get rid of it quick?
sure. And, you factor in the fact that Peyton Manning comes into that game with a few injuries, with his ankle not being 100%, him missing practice that week. You had to know that the Broncos' plan was to get the ball out of his hand, short rhythm passes that didn't allow, the guys like Tamba Ali and Houston to put pressure on them. And that's what they did. And they sprinkled in just enough running game with Noshawn Moreno and Monty Ball to kind of control things there. And Monty had pretty, very good production and a couple of touchdowns definitely helped out the passing game.
Can you talk about this Denver defense? And other than a few drop balls by the wide receivers, some errant passes by Alex Smith, this defense really shut down this Kansas City Chiefs offense.
Yeah, Denver, and the thing about Denver is, they don't have the greatest defense. Kansas City is definitely the top defense in the division. But Denver's defense is just enough. And they're just good enough to get it done. But the great thing about Denver's defense is, for the most part this year, they've played with a lead. And you can do some things defensively as far as rushing the passer, as far as taking some pressure off your defense where teams are not pounding you with the ball, pounding the running game at you. And I think that's Denver's number one, probably the weakest part of their defense is against the run. But it allows them to do what they do best, and that's kind of pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. Sean Phillips, huge pickup for the Broncos, coming over from the San Diego Chargers, has had a tremendous year. Did a tremendous job in the game against KC, and like I said, it gives them the opportunity to kind of do what they do best, and that's pin their ears back and get after the quarterback.
I wanted to ask you about Von Miller and what's happened to him since his return. It looked like he had a good matchup going against Eric Fisher, and he still hasn't been able to get going.
Well, I don't know if you saw my tweet, but I think Eric Fisher did a great job against Von Miller. I think Eric Fisher definitely won that battle. But Von Miller, his name was not really mentioned much that game. But the other thing about it was other guys like I said, Sean Phillips and Wolf kind of stepped up to get pressure on Alex Smith. But that one-on-one matchup with Miller versus Fisher, I give that one to Fisher for round one. We'll see what happens in Kansas City in a couple of weeks.
I want to ask you about this Chiefs team because to me, the way that this game played out, it looked to me like that Kansas City and Andy Reid brought a knife to a gunfight. This offense from Kansas City never really threatened Denver at all. And in fact, a couple of occasions when, Kansas City's 4th and goal on the 1-yard line, they kick a field goal, trading field goals with touchdowns for Peyton Manning, not going to get it done. Later in the game, 4th and 6 from the Denver 40, down by 10 points, I believe, at that point, and punted it away. Cut the lead to 10 again later on and did not go for an onside kick with 5 minutes to go. Do you think that kind of approach to the offense is going to be harmful to the Chiefs going forward as they try to make a playoff run?
Well, the Chiefs, I don't think it'll be harmful to them. The problem is this for them. The problem is with that Bronco game is they fell behind. They were down 10-0, and they're always playing from behind. What they want to do, and what's good for them, for the long haul, is if they can run Jamal Charles. He's one of the top backs in the league. That's their game plan. They want to run him. They want to give that defense a heavy dose of Jamal Charles. And Alex Smith is not a guy that's going to beat you with his arm, but he's a guy that's incredibly accurate, and he's a guy that really, for the most part, doesn't put you in bad situations and doesn't turn the football over. But if you can run the football with Jamal Charles, which is what Andy Reid wants to do, and then the controlled short passing game, and let Alex Smith not make mistakes. That's kind of the ideal situation for them. But when you're sitting in a position where you're down 10 points in the beginning of the game, and you feel like you're taking on water, the ship is taking on water, you put Alex in situations where he's got to throw it a little bit more. That offensive line has got to hold up a little bit more when in pass protection, when their strength of that line is run blocking in Kansas City. It kind of takes Jamal Charles out of the game. So they've got to get back to a situation where they don't fall behind, 10, 14 points, and then they can keep their original game plan, which is to pound Jamal Charles and play action passes to Dwayne Bowe and things like that.
I want to ask you about this Chiefs team. Once the playoffs do start, do you think that it's just a case of our quarterback and Alex Smith, once he comes up against teams like the New England Patriots with Tom Brady, your Denver Broncos with Peyton Manning, that it's just too much and he's just outclassed by a much better quarterback?
No, I don't think Alex Smith is the problem. I don't think he would be the problem if the Chiefs are not advanced in the playoffs. But let me say this: the Chiefs have a great defense, and that's one thing you can always hang your hat on. If you can stop teams, if you can keep them to 14, 17 points, what the Chiefs have done all year long, except for this Broncos game, you have a chance to win ball games, to win playoff games. So as long as Alex Smith keeps continuing to play like he's played this entire year, excluding the Broncos game, as long as the defense performs like they performed all year, excluding this latest Bronco game, the Chiefs should be fine in the playoffs.
Well, I want to get your opinion on, because obviously these teams are set to rematch a week from Sunday, as Denver will come to Arrowhead at 3 o'clock Central Time. Do you think Denver's game plan will change as they bring the show on the road to Arrowhead at all? I mean, do you think that they're going to have to maybe do more offensively, maybe try to get Peyton Manning in more 5-and-step drop situations, or do you think they can bring the same game plan in and have it work again?
I don't think Denver's defense, Denver's game plan will change going into Arrowhead. If there is a little change, I think you might see a little more Sean Moreno, a little more Monte Ball, a little more running the football to kind of help Peyton out and as he gets healthy. That's from the Broncos perspective. From the Kansas City perspective, I think the one change that you may see on the defensive side is you may see the defensive backs for Kansas City get up in the face of the Bronco receivers a little more. You saw a little bit with that with Flowers doing that, and the Broncos did a great job of running rub plays or pick plays or whatever you want to call them to get Wes Welker free. But it really kind of hurt the timing with Demaryius Thomas, in which he would wind up having over 100 yards. But it did, throughout the game, disrupt the timing through Peyton. And he threw a lot of check downs, a lot of shallow crosses routes, 5-yard, routes here to Wes Welker. So I think the Chiefs, from their standpoint, they'll do a lot more of that. They've seen kind of those rub plays, pick plays, how the Broncos like to run them on film, and maybe adjust to those.
Now, Byron, of course, you played football here at Mizzou. We got to ask you about those Tigers because it's a couple big games coming up. Going to go on the road to Ole Miss and then play Texas A&M for a chance to win the SEC East. I'm sure you're watching some of the games last week, even though Mizzou didn't play. But what do you think? How do you like Mizzou's chances to finish this thing off and win the East?
Man, I was watching every game this week as Mizzou had their bye week, and everybody that we needed to help us out didn't help us out. No Florida, no Georgia. Yep. That was an incredible finish to that Georgia-Auburn game. But, the thing about it is I think these group of Tigers are really on a mission. And LaDainian Washington said it best. These guys, they're not just looking, they missed out on a bowl game last year. And coming into the season, LaDainian said they're not just looking to go to a bowl game like they've always done. They're looking to try to crack that BCS and do something special. And it really looks like this team is on a mission to do that. Going into Mississippi to Ole Miss, they're going to get James Franklin back, and that's going to be huge for that offense. And I know through speaking to one of the coaches that they have worked a lot during this during that bye week with James and the receivers getting their timing back, and just, making sure that they have that same amount of confidence that they've had in James Franklin at the beginning of the year. And I really applaud James the way he stepped up at the beginning of the year, because a lot of people were down on him last year and not realizing how injured he was, how banged up he was, and Tigers missing a bowl game for the first time in a long time. So he came back and played tremendous in the beginning of this year. Getting him back is definitely going to be a help for these last two games against Ole Miss and Texas A&M to try to get to Atlanta.
All right, sticking with the Missouri Tigers, but switching from the gridiron to the hardwood, what have you seen out of this Missouri Tigers team so far? It's the 3 games, 3-0, and you've got both Jabari Brown and Jordan Clarkson coming out on fire, both averaging over 19 points per game.
They gave me a little scare against Hawaii. They left Hawaii in the game a little too long for me, for my taste. The one thing I see about this Tiger group is there's a lot of great players on here. There's a lot of good guys and guys that can score, get their own points, and so they look more like they're going to be more of a team concept this year than depending on one or two players to kind of take control and to try to lead this team. It really looks like it's going to be a team effort this year, and I look for some good things in the SEC out of the Tigers.
All right, Byron, well, we appreciate you coming on today. We'll definitely catch up down the road. Big game coming up a week from Sunday as Denver comes back to take on the Chiefs, so we'll certainly be in contact as that approaches. Good luck to the Broncos the rest of the way. Certainly good luck to the Tigers, and great talking to you as always, Byron. We appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, good luck to the Chiefs as well. I hope you guys come into that game with on a win streak, and we continue our winning waves in Denver and have a great win in Arrowhead.
Absolutely. Well, we'll talk to you later. We appreciate it, and we'll catch up soon, my man.
All right.
Thanks a lot. Big thanks to Byron Chamberlain for joining us, talking some Chiefs, Broncos, and also some more Mizzou football. It's the theme of this show certainly has been former Mizzou tight ends. We need Chase Kaufman, Michael Agnew, and Chase Kaufman to come on the show, and we'll complete the deal.
Yes, I think we'll have those two next week. Let's just get it out of the way now. It was great to talk Mizzou basketball, Mizzou football, and this Kansas City Chiefs Denver Broncos game. I have to disagree with Byron Chamberlain a little bit. He mentioned how we'll be fine if Alex Smith plays like he did throughout the first part of the season, just not this Broncos game, and we'll be fine with this defense, how they played through the first part of the season, except for this Broncos game. This Broncos game was the biggest game we played. We're not going to be playing Jeff Toole and the Buffalo Bills, Case Keenum and the Houston Texans in the playoffs. We're going to be playing teams like this Denver Broncos team, and they're going to have to step up and play better, not play like they did throughout the first part of the season where we played a bunch of cupcake teams.
We're going to be going into this Chiefs-Broncos game and what the future holds for Kansas City after the break, but I'll tell you what, Alex Smith, for what this was not a bad Alex Smith day. 2 touchdowns. He averages about 1 a game through 2 in this game. Certainly was not a great player by any means, and we're going to be talking more about that after the break. But, I do disagree with that as well. I think that this defense has softened up a bit. Maybe it's just the grind of the season. Maybe some guys banged up. Maybe teams are sort of catching on to the fact that, hey, if we don't turn this ball over, this game's going to be close and we have a good chance to win. I think that's what Phillip Rivers and the Chargers are going to do. Now, can they do it? Phillip Rivers can't not turn the ball over. Sorry for the double negative, but he just can't do it, bud.
Yeah, and Ryan Matthews has had fumble issues, especially against our Kansas City Chiefs throughout the year. So it's going to be interesting. They're going to have to find somebody, maybe a Danny Woodhead, to hold on to that football and get him going. Also throw it to Antonio Gates. I see a lot of him. Eric Berry still has trouble with tight ends. We saw that against the Denver Broncos and Julius Thomas.
All right, we'll return after the break. The Outsider Sports Show, Clint Switzer and Gronniger will be joining you after the break, talking more Chiefs football. Do not go anywhere. Well, no, as we get into more of this Chiefs-Broncos game, and I'll be honest, I thought this game was overhyped from the get-go. These teams play each other twice in 2 weeks. We'll host the Broncos again next Sunday. This game was so overhyped by Chiefs fans. The biggest game of our generation. The Chiefs will get the 10-0.
Oh, definitely not. I mean, you've got playoff games. I mean, if only that. I mean, if those are the only games you count, those are bigger than this Denver Broncos game. And this was paraded around like the biggest game in Chiefs history, minus Super Bowl IV, or maybe even more than Super Bowl IV.
Yeah, and I think that's unfair. And this Chiefs team still has everything to play for. 9-1, tied with Denver. Denver, of course, right now with the head-to-head leading the division. But Denver's got to go to New England this Sunday night. And Tom Brady and the Patriots are coming off a heartbreaking, controversial loss to the Carolina Panthers. A controversial holding call that was no call that happened in the end zone. Maybe pass interference in the end zone on the game's final play. The Patriots maybe should have had another play there to win that game. But Tom Brady this is going to be big. The Chiefs, you need Denver to lose that game. And then if that happens, if the Chiefs are able to knock off San Diego and you got another game on Denver, you could come in, the Denver Broncos could come in, the Chiefs could distance themselves by 2 games over the Denver Broncos. That would be absolutely huge.
Yeah, I like Denver in this game against New England, but it's going to be a great game. I think it'll be close. I think Denver will come out on top. Hopefully not. Hopefully Tom Brady and Tom Terrific can get it done at the end, unlike he did against the Carolina Panthers, although the questionable call with the pass interference. But it goes down as a loss, but Tom Brady's definitely going to be hungry to get back in the winning column, and he's going to give Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos all they can handle.
I want to go back to the Chiefs-Broncos game, and I want to ask you this. And we talked about this, off the air earlier in the week when breaking down this game. And I asked the question, is this offense just too conservative? Is Andy Reid playing this thing too close to the vest, knowing I'm not going to go try to make a play because I don't have the players to do that. We just can't turn it over or we are done. So we'll do things like punt from the Denver 40 down by 10 points in the fourth quarter, knowing that the game's over. We will not go for it on 4th and 1 when we have to score touchdowns instead of field goals. Did it seem a little close to the vest for you? I mean, this team obviously didn't want to get blown out.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think you've got him playing it careful, playing it close to the vest, like you said, because he knows Alex Smith. He knows he cannot go down the field. 80% of his passes are within 10 yards. But then you've got to be a little bit more willing to take a risk, and especially on that 4th down and 1 from the goal line.
Yeah.
You have to go for it there. Taking 3 when you're that close to the goal line against Peyton Manning is just going to end in a loss.
I agree, and I think that the Broncos' game plan was the opposite, which was Peyton Manning. They decided Peyton Manning wasn't getting hit. He said, my ankle's banged up. I'm not taking one hit in this game. I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to throw it at receivers' feet. I'll throw it over their heads. He had 17 incompletions. Which is not like him. He's thrown 73% at a completion rate this season. He was throwing the ball away if he had to. He didn't care. He just was not going to get hit, was not going to turn the ball over. And the one turnover the Chiefs did get, they couldn't capitalize because Alex Smith, captain check down, is checking the ball down to his fullback, Anthony Sherman, who's not good at football. So yes, a fumble's going to happen and you're going to lose the ball and you're going to lose a chance to score.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Peyton Manning said to himself, the only way we're going to lose this game is if I hold on to this ball too long, get hit in the ankle, get hit in the back, get injured or re-injure my high ankle sprain, and I'm out of this game. So I don't care if it's incomplete. I don't care if I throw it at their feet. I'm getting rid of this ball in 2 seconds. That doesn't give them any time to get there no matter what happens. And we're going to win this game because Alex Smith and that offense cannot keep up.
You're right. Denver did not have to score 41, 45, 49, 52 points in this game to win it. They knew that. 27 was going to be plenty, and it was.
18 would have been enough.
18 would have been plenty of enough. And really, I can't, this Chiefs team's 9-1. Do we know any more about this team than we did before the Denver game? Do we know? Because before that, we thought, okay, they've played some of the subpar competition. The quarterbacks they faced have been brutal. But here they go. Here's a chance to play the Denver Broncos. I'm not disappointed, but I think what I found out was the Chiefs are a good team, but certainly not an elite team.
I think it's actually getting kind of worse because the last 3 weeks, including that Broncos game, you haven't seen any pass rush at all. I mean, I didn't think too highly of this team, even early in the season when they were getting that dominant pass rush, because I never believed in the offense could keep up with the elite teams like the Seahawks and the Saints and the Broncos and the Patriots. But now that our defense seems to be even getting worse, and you saw how Marcus Cooper was exposed against one of the best receivers in the game, Demaryius Thomas, also having Peyton Manning throwing the ball doesn't hurt, but they picked on Marcus Cooper all night long.
Yeah, and that's something that, we talked about Marcus Cooper earlier in the year, and he's made some unbelievable plays for this team. But put him on an island against some of these top-notch receivers, he's going to get beat. We saw it back all the way as far back as the Giants game by Victor Cruz. This Chiefs team has given up big plays in the passing game, and but aside from that, the Chiefs did hold Denver to its lowest point total of the year, 27. The previous was 28 a couple weeks ago to San Diego. But I think the defense did enough. They slowed them down enough to where you should have been in the football game a little more than we were. I never felt like that it was a game in the second half. Even down 7, which we were for most of the third quarter.
Yeah, and especially late in the game with 5 minutes left, I believe it was, a little over 5 minutes, and we kicked the ball off instead of kicking the onside kick. Didn't understand that at all. You have to go for the onside kick. I mean, Peyton Manning is a master of the 2-minute drill, 4-minute drill, whatever it is. He's going to drain that clock, get the first down, whatever he has to do. Throw it on third down when you think he's going to run and complete a wide open pass because you weren't expecting it, and you lose the game.
I think that here's the thing. This Chiefs team at 9-0, fans went absolutely nuts. This team is great. They're the best team in the league. When you and I knew that wasn't the case, when a lot of people that really watch football, know the game, know that the Chiefs were not an elite team, that they were an opportunistic team who was doing just enough to win, a quarterback that wasn't turning it over, a running back that was doing just enough, who's a very good running back in this league in Jamal Charles, that was really carrying the load, and a defense that was just making big plays all over the place and getting putting the Chiefs in winning predicaments.
Smith, flushed, chased, loses the football, and it's picked up, and it's another turnover, and Quentin Michael is going to run all the way to the end zone for a touchdown. The rookie Brandon Graham flushed him, got him to lose the football, and the Eagles with a gigantic play.
Oh, and that's a terrible play by Alex Smith. He had Vernon Davis on the blitz read. All you got to do is take it. He saw it. He took the ball back to make the throw, and he just didn't take it. Blitz coming off the right side. There it is. Vernon Davis, take it right there. You just throw it to his outside shoulder, no problem. Instead, you let the blitz get you, and the game is completely...
And all of a sudden, it seems to me like when you're 9-0, the expectations change a little bit because you have to look at your team and say, can this team win the Super Bowl? Because there's teams 5-5 right now, like the Jets, who are just trying to get in the playoffs. They have no chance to win the Super Bowl, whatever. The Chiefs were 9-0. They're 9-1 now. A team that's 9-1 should be able to look itself in the mirror and say, can we win the Super Bowl? What can we do to get to the Super Bowl? This team cannot get to the Super Bowl.
No, definitely
They might as well be the 6-4 Cincinnati Bengals right now. I'm serious.
Or the 4-6 Giants, although the Giants will probably win the rest of the games and win the Super Bowl. I
Absolutely.
expect them to do exactly that. But this Kansas City Chiefs team just seems to be getting worse. You see more often drop balls. One early play where Alex Smith rolled out and threw it to Anthony Sherman in the flat the time he didn't fumble. You saw Anthony Fasano 10 yards down the field running wide open, and Alex Smith decided to go with his captain check down status and throws it to Anthony Sherman instead of Fasano.
He's not taking chances. He's not going to take them. He's not going to take these chances. And you know what? Alex Smith still has a career in the National Football League because of this. Because he, after 7, 8 years in this league, this is now his 9th, he realized, I am not an elite passer. I don't have an elite arm. I can't make plays downfield. So he had to completely change his game to be a check down, don't turn it over, and guess what? He became elite at being average.
Yes, he did. I mean, you got to attribute that to Jim Harbaugh coming into the 49ers and taking a look at his game and realizing what he can and can't do, mostly what he can't do, and just told him to be captain check down. Especially with that 49ers team, you got one of the best offensive lines in football, great running game, pretty good wide receivers, a great tight end in Vernon Davis, a strong defense, and that's how he rose to stardom now, and that's how he's a Kansas City Chief now because of that style of gameplay.
And that's why he still has a career and hasn't busted out of the league.
Yeah, exactly.
If you had been chucking it down field during the 2011 season and turning it over and doing what he had done for the first 7 years of his career, he'd be gone. How many times were the 49ers wanting to give up on him before it finally happened?
Yeah, and you look at these other quarterbacks that maybe don't stay in the league as long as Alex Smith because they still believe and are trying to get better and trying to be an elite quarterback and still have dreams of being one of the best in the league. And
a playmaker.
A Hall of Fame, a playmaker, yes. And they're still chucking it down the field, believing in their arm, trying to make those tight throws into tight windows, and they end up turning the ball over too much, and then they're out of the league. Alex Smith says, well, forget that. I know I'm not going to be a playmaker. I know I'm not going to be a Hall of Famer or one of the great quarterbacks in the game. So I'm just going to check this ball down, not turn it over, rely on my defense, rely on a great running back, Jamal Charles, and I'm going to stay in this league and win games. I may not win important games. I may not win games in the playoffs. I may not beat the best teams. But there's a lot of teams, average or below average in this league, that I can beat by playing that style of game.
Well, guys, we get a lot of criticism for the way we talk about this team, for the way we talk about Alex Smith. And you can certainly send us a tweet at Outsider Sports, and we'd love to hear from you. And certainly go to the Facebook page, too. Just search for the Outsider Sports Show, and you can certainly give us your thoughts about this Chiefs team, about what we're talking about right now, which is Alex Smith. But here's the question, and here's a question I want to ask you. And we get a lot of flack, and we hear people say things like, "It was so much worse. We had Matt Castle. This is better than that." Is it?
I mean, if you only refer to Matt Castle as the 2012 Matt Castle, then yes, it is. But if you go back to Matt Castle 2010, Alex Smith has never and will never come close to those numbers. 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. The most touchdowns Alex Smith has thrown in a season in his career is 18.
And
That's 9 off, and he's not close now. He's got 11 through 11 games, which means he'll probably have 16 and 16 games. That's how it's going right now. So, I mean, he's a pathetic quarterback, really.
Trust me, Matt Castle was a damaged quarterback physically and mentally. He was done here. There was no doubt about that. But, with this type of coaching, with what Andy Reid and what Doug Peterson and this offense are capable of as far as coaching a quarterback up and keeping him safe and keeping him, not turning the ball over, maybe Matt Castle and this Chiefs team right now are 7-3 instead of 9-1. I really think that a quarterback in here under Andy Reid, anyone could have been coached to do this.
Yeah,
you or I could have been coached to not kill, a team with turnovers.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Castle was starting it for the Vikings in London, and he got a win up there against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, that's one of the 2 Vikings wins right now. I mean, I think he could come in here, coached by Andy Reid. Brad Childress is up there too. And you've got Doug Peterson, a former quarterback. I think Matt Castle would not be too far off. I think he had all those turnovers, and the whole team was just an unbelievable mess because of Romeo Crennel and having no coaching staff and just no game plan. Players were just thrown out there by themselves on their own to do whatever. A bunch of missed blocks. You had Eric Winston, who was awful here. We signed him to a big deal 1 year, and he's gone. I mean, Matt Castle could do exactly what Alex Smith is doing right now. Maybe a few worse games, but he could do this.
Well, and we got San Diego coming in at noon at Arrowhead Stadium. The Chiefs need to rebound, and the crowd is going to need to be there. And this Chiefs team needs to gain some confidence back because they got Denver coming back the very next week. San Diego's 4-6. They've lost a lot of close games. Phyllis Rivers continues to really cost the team in key pivotal situations. He's had a pretty good start to the season, but lately it's not been quite so good. Their offensive line is struggling. The Chiefs' pass rush maybe can get back on track. I think the Chiefs win this game. I think they win it 20-17. I think it's another close win, but the Chiefs get back on track with a win, I think.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be close, but what game really isn't, unless you're playing Blaine Gabbert and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, this offense just can't put up the number of points to get a blowout. But I do see us winning. The Chargers, Phillip Rivers has, I almost said Phyllis.
Sorry.
Phillip Rivers has played much better this season. Yes, he still had a few mistakes. You're always going to get that with Phillip, but he's playing much more inspired football. Antonio Gates is back and healthy. He's having a good year. Keenan Allen has really come on, a wide receiver out of California, as their really go-to target. Eddie Royal had a good few first games, but he's kind of slowed down as expected. And that defense is still a strong defense. You got Manti Te'o there. Dwight Freeney's out for the year. That hurts them. That was a big free agency acquisition for them. Their offensive line's not bad. I think we're still going to get stonewalled if we get stonewalled against the Cleveland Browns, the Buffalo Bills, and the Denver Broncos in consecutive weeks. I don't see us getting pressure on Phillip Rivers either. Also, Ryan Matthews, I wanted to mention him. He's had a really good year. Just came off a game of 124 yards rushing. That's really unexpected from him. He's usually in the 60, 70 yards, 2 fumbles, no touchdowns. He's had a really rough career, but it looks like he's starting to get it going, and that could be the key against the Chiefs if they've really struggled stopping the run.
Chargers are 4-6. They're not out of this thing yet, but they're going to be if they lose to Kansas City. I think San Diego's a nice team, just kind of what they've been the past 3 or so years, an 8-8 type team that just can't get over the hump. They have some talent. They just can't rise up. And the Chargers have 2 games against the Chiefs and 1 game against the Broncos here in the next few weeks. They're going to be out of this thing. And I think the Chiefs get healthy, and I think they get healthy in a big way with the win over San Diego, setting up a huge game against the Broncos. But I'll tell you what, guys, cannot thank you enough for joining us here on The Hog today on a beautiful college football Saturday. We are so excited for all the action this weekend. Please find us on all our social media outlets, on Facebook and Twitter. We're always there. We're always commenting, always willing to strike up a conversation with a fan, whether it be good or bad.
Yes, exactly. And we've got a great website up, totally up to date. We always keep it up to date. Articles, our old podcasts, I mean, all of our interviews. It's great stuff. The outsidersportshow.weebly.com, and Weebly is Weebly.
Guys, have a wonderful and safe and happy Thanksgiving. We will talk to you next week right here on The Hog, the Outsider Sports Show. Thank you so much for joining us.